Painters, welcome back. Today we're going to be doing a lovely springtime wooden sign. This is great to put in your yard or in your home during the springtime. My paints today, as you can see, are here. I have white, brown, black, blue, fluorescent violet, red, yellow, and green. Feel free to switch up the colors because maybe you want to do different flowers. I also have some other paper plates to mix up my colors, a little thing with some water, paper towels, and my brushes. Now I recommend at least one type of squared flat brush, like one of these two that I have, and then one flat brush that's round at the end, kind of looks like a finger. Those are going to be great for our flowers. And lastly, one small pointy brush just for all the fine detail work. With that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Now, because this is wood, it will soak up all of our paint really fast. So what I'm going to do is take my big flat brush and get a bunch of water and basically douse the entire wooden sign with water. This will help the paint to lay really nicely on it. And then we're going to be making a wash. So I'm going to be taking some brown paint and mixing it with a ton of water. We want it to be very liquidy, very runny. And we're going to use a little bit at a time and add this to our wooden sign to stain it. The darker you want your stain to be, the more layers you add. Once your background stain is done, you're going to let it dry before we continue. Now, once it's dry, we're going to be mixing up a very light gray for the watering can. So with my big flat brush, I'm going to be grabbing a bunch of white and a very small touch of black to create the color I like. Now, when we think about how we're going to draw out this water can, I'm going to start with the bottom edge. I'm going to draw a straight line starting from the second panel all the way over to the fourth panel. Mostly in the third, that's where it's more centered. And I'm going to draw that same line up further on my wooden panel, making sure I at least have enough room for flowers at the top. Then I'm going to connect those lines in the second and fourth panel. They don't have to be perfectly straight because sometimes water cans, they have wear and tear. So that's the basic shape, and then we're going to draw the spout. So in our first panel, I'm going to start about center and then draw a diagonal line going downwards until I hit my water can. The full width of a big flat brush is perfect for this. Once we have that drawn in, we can fill in our water can with this light gray. Next, I'm going to take a small pointy brush in that same color and we're going to be drawing the handle. So on the right side, we're going to be drawing a backwards S shape. So starting on the top, curling around towards the center of our water can and then flicking under and up for that little curl. Feel free to make it as thick as you want. And then we're also going to be drawing a line that's connecting the spout to the main base of our water can, sort of cutting the corner and making a triangle shape. The last part with this color is adding a slight oval shape to the end of the spout where the water will be pouring out from. Now, while this paint's still wet with our pointy brush, we're going to grab some white paint and throw some highlights in. Along the spout, along the top edge, going to be throwing in some white and slowly blending it down so it starts to disappear. I'm going to also add some white in that little corner cut that we made, and then along the top left edge of our main part of our water can. Then I'm going to also add a slight highlight to the spout. Just a couple little lines along the outside edge. And then lastly, a highlight in the handle of our water can. Now before we get to our flowers, we're going to focus on our leaves. With a small pointy brush, I'm going to grab a little bit of white, big scoop of yellow, and about a half a scoop of green. maybe even a touch of brown or black depending on how muted you want your color to be. Mix, 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 and we're going to be creating a bunch of leaves that are the shape of like an eyeball or a football. It's pointy on both ends and it's really plump and big in the center of the leaf. Now, as you can see in my second panel here, I'm throwing some leaves, ones at the top of the stem, and then these ones that are diagonal, that are coming in towards the middle, those are going to be connected to the sides of that main stem we're going to make later on. I'm going to throw some in my fourth panel as well, some that are a little bit bigger. Next, we're going to mix up a lighter version of this by mixing in a big scoop of white and maybe a little bit more yellow. And then we're going to be doing the same technique, the same shape of our leaves, in between each one of those darker green leaves, just on this second panel here. In the fourth panel, you'll add one alongside those two big green leaves that we made. All right, it's time to think about our flowers. I'm going to start with a very, very light baby blue with a big scoop of white and a small touch of blue. Now with these flowers, you can change up the colors if you want. Feel free to get creative. I'm using my flat round brush. This is going to be perfect for creating lovely petals. So I'm going to start at the tip of my petal and then brush it in towards the center of my flower. I'm going to do that about 5-6 times depending on how many petals you want, and then just filling in that center. Now I want to give some shadowing to these flowers, so I'm going to make a slightly darker blue, make some of the petals this darker blue, or make the middle of the flower the darker blue, something to make the flowers stand out and have a little dimension. My next flower color is going to be a lovely coral, so with a clean round flat brush, I'm going to grab a scoop of white, a little bit of red, and a little bit of yellow. I'm going to mix those together, and these are pretty much the same shape as the blue flowers, but I'm going to do some with less petals. Then we're going to be making a slightly darker version with some more red and yellow to cancel out some of that white to add those same effects. So in the center of the flowers, throwing this shadowing. And you can even make a rose-like texture by drawing these curved lines starting in the center and then curling around each other as you move outwards in your flower. Next, I'm going to be making some purples. So on top of my blue mixture, I'm going to grab some of that fluorescent violet, maybe a touch more blue and white to create a lovely lilac. This flower is going to be the same exact type of shape where you start on the outside of the petal and pull in towards the center. Now I actually forgot one step with this lighter pink, so I'm going to add a little bit more white back to this darker pink that we created. Now there are these tiny little buds, these flowers that have yet to bloom, basically tiny little dots that are in a small collection at the top in between my third and fourth panel, and then also underneath my leaves over on the second panel. And then getting back into that darker pink by adding some more red and yellow, with my small pointy brush adding a shadow underneath each of those little bulbs. We're going to lighten that pink up one more time, but with extra amount of white. We want it to be really, really pale. We're going to dot in the center of our purple flower to add this lovely little Then we're going to be lightening up our purple a hair and adding a touch more violet, or even a little bit of red, so it's more pinky. And we're going to be doing one more flower with this purpley color in between your second and third panel. Same idea where you start at the tip of your petal and then move towards the center of your flower, but since you're using your pointy brush instead, your petals are going to be a lot thinner. Then next we're going to be creating a medium blue shade by adding a big scoop of blue to that purple we have. Inside that lighter purple flower, I'm drawing these little tiny lines within each of my petals. Maybe 2 lines, 1 to 2 lines per petal using my pointy brush. Now I'm going to take a small break from my flowers to focus on the spout. There are little holes where the water pours out from, so with a small pointy brush in black paint, just dotting a whole bunch of times in that oval. Now I'm going to be working on the words. So it says hello spring. I'm using 2 different types of fonts. You can choose whatever font you want. You can freehand it. You could even use maybe some chalk or a pencil to draw it on before you paint it in. I'm fitting this all in that third panel, right in the center of my water can. Now I do want to add one more color of flower to my little bouquet. So I'm going to take my big flat round brush with a scoop of white, scoop of yellow, and just a small hair touch of red. Adding a couple flowers in this color, same way we did with all the other flowers. Start at the edge of the petal, then pull in towards the middle. And the last step in this painting is to take the black paint and add all those fine details. So the little stems that connect all of our leaves together, as well as the little flower buds or berries. And black is also in the middle of some of our flowers. It could be dotted in, it can be a perfect circle if you want it to be, but that will add the final touch to all of our flowers. Now I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and we would love to see what you're painting at home. Feel free to post on social media and don't forget to tag us at muse_paintbar so we can check them out. If you want to see more from our channel, make sure you like and subscribe, and with that, don't forget to always paint outside the lines.